You let us know when we are streaming. Good morning, everyone. Call to order this regular meeting of council for Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. And before we get into any of the agenda items, we have some introductions. Dr. Cottle.
I'll do. Ooh. It's just me, thanks, Brian. I'll do one, and then maybe we can turn on Mr. Schimbine's microphone as well. So we have two newly certified CPOs with us, Chase and Jack. And I believe, Jack, have you been here before, but not Chase?
Yes.
Yes,
correct.
okay. So just wanted to acknowledge, Jack's been here before, but it's Chase's first council meeting. So welcome to
Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schimbein.
Good morning. We just want to introduce a new manager on our senior leadership team. So please let me introduce Anne Clennett. She brings more than 20 years of senior public sector experience, including extensive expertise in legislative interpretation, governance, policy development, and access, information, and privacy, as well as records management, most recently joining us from the Alberta Human Rights Commission. We're really excited to welcome her as the new manager of legislative services. And we're going through a little bit of a rebrand. So the municipal clerk's office will be formally changing names to legislative services, and there'll be more to come about that. But just to put some context there.
Great.
Welcome.
Well, I've met you in person. Now allow me to formally welcome you to the town of Canmore, and thank you for being here today. Okay, so a few of us are wearing Eagles jerseys today. It's game 3 in round 2 of the playoffs in Drumheller. The Eagles hopefully on the road will bring it to 3-0. Hopefully they can keep things rolling. With respect to eagles, I was thinking about eagles. They're one of my favorite animals, and of course this area is known for the golden eagle migration. It's actually taking place right now. The northern trek happens from the end of February through into April, and then in the fall the southern trek as they head south. And I once was up on Lady Macdonald, and I had this one experience. I could hear something. It sounded like a little toy plane. Like a remote control plane, and I looked up and I could see like hundreds of golden eagles, and they were going so fast riding the jet stream that there was a buzz from them. So it was really quite something. And of course, for millennia, eagles have been important here. And just recently we had a renaming, or going back to the original name of a peak on the northeast side of the valley that overlooks Canmore, to Bald Eagle Peak. And as we know, eagle symbolism is very strong in the Indigenous culture. Eagles represent power and strength, freedom and courage, and a sacred connection to the Great Spirit, acting as messengers carrying lessons of wisdom down to earth, while carrying prayers and intentions to the Creator. And so in that spirit, and in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I acknowledge that we are gathered in the heart of Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. This land is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of the Siksika, Kainai, and Pikanai First Nations, also the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and our most adjacent Indigenous neighbors, the Stoney Nakoda, comprised of the Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and Chiniki First Nations. Further, we are located within the Rocky View Métis District within the Battle River Territory, District 4. The town of Canmore has been, is, and remains committed to working to live in right relations and to advance truth and reconciliation as we acknowledge the many Indigenous people whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations and generations. I'm grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, and those who have gone before us. As we are all treaty people, we each have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor all life. So just noting, Councillor Hillstad is joining us remotely today. And I'll now move to item A2, agenda for the April 7th meeting. Any changes? Not seeing any. So I move approval of the agenda for the April 7th, 2026 regular meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now for the minutes for March 3rd. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I move approval of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2026 regular meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And on to our first item of business. Item G1, Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw Amendment 2026-03 map updates. Bradshaw, welcome. And whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
Perfect. Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Jana Bradshaw, and I'm a development planner here with the town of Canmore. And I will be speaking today about the Three Sisters Village ASP Bylaw Amendment, which consists of multiple map updates. So for context, we are looking specifically at the Three Sisters Village area shown by the red arrow on the screen. As Council is aware, in October 2023, Council gave 3 readings to adopt the Three Sisters Village ASP, and in April 2024, Council gave 3 readings to adopt the Three Sisters Village Phase 1 conceptual scheme and a land use bylaw amendment which added a number of land use districts and overlays to implement that conceptual scheme. So the conceptual scheme provided a framework to review and approve the corresponding subdivision application for Phase 1, which has received approval. During the detailed design process for the Phase 1 subdivision, design and constructability constraints related to steep topography were identified with respect to the multi-use trail network along the North Plan area. Following discussions between town administration and Three Sisters Mountain Village, agreement was reached to realign the north portion of the multi-use trail. This design solution provides an alternative to a multi-use pathway conceptually envisioned in the ASP along the north boundary, and it will link the east and west collector roads in the ASP plan area. So you can see this realignment in the map shown on the screen. Three Sisters Mountain Village has submitted an amendment to the ASP following these discussions with town administration. The proposed amendment will accommodate the realigned portion of the multi-use trail network along that North Plan area. It will not alter land use, policy direction, development concepts, or regulations of the Three Sisters Village ASP. And additional details of the proposed map amendments are available in the council package. The realignment of the multi-use trail in the North Plan area remains generally consistent with the relevant policies and plans in the ASP, specifically those policies under Section 6.5, Trail Network, and 7.2, Sustainable Transportation Network. And the amendments continue to achieve the goal of creating a multi-use trail network through all phases of Three Sisters Village and connect municipal, provincial, and national trail networks. In terms of interest holder engagement, a notice was placed in 2 editions of the Rocky Mountain Outlook advertising this council meeting. And as a result of the history of this file, Section 619 of the Municipal Government Act is applicable. So this amendment has been reviewed to be consistent with the Natural Resource Conservation Board decision, and as a result, a public hearing is not required. Therefore, it is administration's recommendation that council give first reading, second reading, give leave to go to third reading, and give third reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw Amendment 2026-03. That concludes my presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bradshaw. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Councillor Ma.
Thanks, Ms. Bradshaw, for presentation. So when I look at the two maps, it seems like they're originally the path on the north side used to be almost like a ring path that encompassed the entire region of the development there, and that seems to be, rather than doing that, you have to go up and in, which I think is also like, is also the main road access as well? And how's that set up? Is that a divided piece, or how does that multi-use exist in tandem with the road? Was what I'm curious about.
Absolutely, thank you. Through the chair, I will defer this question to the team to answer on more of the technical aspects of that realigned trail.
Great, thanks, Dean.
Mr. Weldon, welcome.
Oh, thank you. So that's correct. Yeah, the original trail alignment, as you pointed out, Councillor Ma, was on the north side of the plan area. And as you mentioned, it does kind of encircle the entire plan area. This is still consistent with that. It does have to come up slightly, as you can see in, actually I can, it does now follow the road alignment, but it does complete that entire circular network for the trail.
Okay, and with respect to that, is that like a separate pathway adjacent to the road, or is it shared road, or?
It's going to be shared within the road right-of-way itself. So it's not separate as a separate multi-use pathway, but it is included in the road right-of-way, and will be designed to fulfill the same function as a
Right, so there's a space allotment that will make it safe for the bikes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, there. I can defer the actual design aspect of it to Ms.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Benton, but yeah.
Okay, cool. And I think just for the public's understanding, there still is the regular path on the other side of Three Sisters Parkway for access back and forth to town as well too. So this is something that's tied to this part of the particular development.
That's
Great.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Smithers.
Yes, thank you. Just for an additional bit of clarification there, although the pathway is in the road right-of-way, it is separated from vehicular traffic. So not unlike, for example, Bow Valley Trail, bit of a different condition, but that's all in the road right-of-way, but we've separated the multi-use pathway from the driving lanes.
Okay.
So same thing here, and there is actually, to capture that going forward, part of the ASP amendment includes cross-sections of what that would look like.
Great, thank you. Councillor Graham.
If I might just follow up on that, and thank you, Your Worship. So, very similar to Bow Valley Trail, and not say, what is that, 8th, where we have like a bike, there's a road, a bike lane, parking. This is going to be separate, similar to Bow Valley Trail.
Yeah, it's agreed. Get it.
Thank you, through your mayor to Councillor Graham. Happy to answer that question. Just for clarification, the road right-of-way is where the separate active transportation zone is designed to come through in this realigned pathway. Those are intended to be local roads and don't typically have a separate facility for active transportation. In this case, to accommodate the pathway, there is an addition of the active transportation zone and separate red and gray concrete.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for that clarity. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. So I'll move that council give first reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw Amendment 2026-03 map updates. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? These are, I believe, one of those types of amendments that are necessary because we had to update the maps, but it's one of the practical things that happens as you go through a project and you find that maybe one route is problematic, and then there's another route that can satisfy the need in a better way. And so I see this as very much a housekeeping to get our maps aligned with the new route, and I certainly support it. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Move the council give second reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw Amendment 2026-03 map updates. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council give leave to go to third reading of Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw Amendment 2026-03 map updates. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And finally, I'll move the council give third reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw Amendment 2026-03 map updates. Anyone wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to new business. And Ms. Lee, if you want to, pull out the table and easier to work, whatever works, it's get comfortable and do what you need to do. That's all right when you come in to move the table and stuff. So. All right, so our next item of business is H1, fee waiver, YWCA higher ground development. Ms. Smithers.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Mayor and members of Council. I'm here to talk to you today about a proposed fee waiver for the higher ground development that YWCA is building on the Mustache lands. So, as you will know, I've presented multiple updates over the past couple of years on this land. The town and YWCA are continuing to collaborate on the development of deeply affordable housing on the Mustache lands. So as part of that, we recommend waiving of the development and building permit fees. That would represent part of the town's contribution to this project. And of course, because the fee schedule is approved by council, the decision to waive fees must also be approved by council. So why waive the fees? There's a few reasons. Firstly, that the YWCA is advancing this project as part of our commitment, the town's commitment to use the site for affordable housing. That was part of the original agreement that we struck with the province in them committing to the reservation agreement to give the land to the town. In total, YWCA envisions about between 270 and 330 deeply affordable non-market units. Oh, sorry, I've got a typo in there, rental units. As part of the development of this area, this is in alignment with the town's area structure plan as well, and the intent of the use of this land going back a few years with council. The first building that we're talking about waiving the fees for is 120 units. When we think about the town's contribution to the project, really at the stage we're at now, we've agreed that the Y is the lead housing provider for the project. So we've kind of given them the land through a long-term lease, but that's at no cost to the town because the province is committing to give the town the land. We have talked about funding for this project from the livability budget, but that is still yet to be determined as we respond to some of the changes anticipated from the town, or from the province rather, and we look at some of the budget impacts of that. And then the fee waiver is really the biggest financial contribution we can make to this project in terms of what represents a financial contribution for the YWCA. So we have heard from a number of funding agencies in other projects, affordable housing projects that have looked for provincial funding, that they do look for municipal contributions, such as waiving fees for projects for affordable housing. And currently that in-kind contribution is our most accessible option because we don't have the approved budget to offer a grant, but this is an in-kind contribution. There is a budget impact for the town, obviously, but it represents a significant impact for the YWCA. We also want to learn from this going forward. So currently, the approved livability budget includes about $12 million to assist housing providers with grants that would cover these types of fees. As I said, we need to balance the support for affordable housing with the loss of budgeted revenues, because that is a significant loss of revenue to planning and development that we use to pay staff to process applications. So we want to be able to balance that and offer those grants going forward, but in a way that does not impact the ability of the department to continue to deliver the core services they need in a timely manner. We're also, as part of that, talking about criteria for when a grant or fee waiver should be applied and what that process would be. So in many ways, we're very much considering this project as kind of a pilot rather than just a one-off specific to the YWCA. And then I just had a flag there. I did want to note that we do currently have about $12 million targeted for grants, but that will change as the budget needs to be amended. So I didn't want to lose that as well. So that's my presentation for today. The recommendation that administration has is that council direct administration to waive development and building permit application fees associated with the YWCA's higher ground development in Palliser. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Smithers. Looking to council to see if you have any questions. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Smithers. A couple of clarifying questions. So the actual development fees are $26,000, but we talked about a $700,000 in-kind contribution. But the development fees are $26,000.
The development permit fees, the building permit fees would be higher. The $700,000 is kind of an upset. They could come in potentially probably closer to $500,000. It's just at the point in time that we wrote this report, we're working with a Class D estimate, and as our pencils get a bit sharper on it, the in-kind contribution could be closer to the $500,000. But the point being, the building permit fee is much more expensive than the development permit fee because you're close to actually delivering the project, right? And those are $10. I think the building permit fee is about $10 per $1,000 of construction value.
Mr. Scheiben, we have some children in the... sorry. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then secondly, so is now an appropriate time to make the request that those funds actually come from the livability tax, or that is another time slightly further down the road?
I would say another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. Thank you very much.
Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Smithers. The fees that we charge at the development permit and the building permit stage, how do we calculate those? And what do we use them for?
So the development permit fees are calculated based on the use and the size of the use. The building permit fees, as I said, are a reflection of the construction value of the whole project, right? Which would not include soft costs, which I think in that $700,000, again, because it's a Class D estimate, I don't doubt that there's some soft costs in there that would have been kind of whittled out of the actual. And then there's also, again, fees for land use amendments, subdivision applications, outline plans. So really they're used for, across the spectrum of development on a piece of land, the staff time to assess and make decisions. As we get closer to the building permit time, they're used for inspections, plan reviews, all the administration associated with that. So it really kind of is a cost recovery model over the lifespan of development on a given chunk of dirt.
Thank you.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Smithers, for your presentation. This is a great idea. I know it's aligned with what other municipalities do as far as incentivizing non-market housing. I'm kind of curious how it came about for this particular project, because there have been other non-market housing projects that have come about where this kind of waiver has not been put forward in front of council.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. One of the reasons it came about, to be honest, is feedback we'd received from other housing providers on why their grant applications had not been successful. So we know that grant organizations want to see a municipal contribution to the project, and this is a pretty clear line of sight to a municipal contribution to the project, which is why we're doing it specifically for the YWCA, but then also, as I said, why we're considering this as kind of a pilot for how we can continue to support affordable housing projects going forward.
Dr. Cottle?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I agree with everything Ms. Smithers said. I think the fundamental difference too between this project and others is that the YWCA's project is deeply affordable. It's not just below market in terms of the CCH model. It's a completely different model than anything we've ever seen before. And there really, as Ms. Smithers said in her presentation, there's been no contribution at all from the town. So when you look at CCH as an example, there's a lot of financial contribution to CCH. The land for this project has been given to the town by the province at no cost, so that there's really been no contribution from the town. And for the Y in their fundraising, there will need to be an indication of support from the local government, and so this is one of the ways that we can very clearly provide it. And that, I would say, is a bit unique from any other project we've seen so far.
Makes sense. Thank you.
But it is also a matter of timing, because under the livability reserve, we do anticipate making contributions. So if this could come afterwards, that wouldn't be a discerning point, right? Yeah. Councillor Marin.
Yeah, thank you for the information, and thank you to Councillor Murray for asking those questions. I had the same ones. As this is kind of being framed as a pilot project, would this be, do you anticipate that something like this would be accessible to a private builder who is building staff accommodation, for example, in the future? Is this something that you feel would be, or that you anticipate could be an option to removing some barriers for other affordable housing projects?
Potentially,
Okay.
and I think staff accommodation is a really good example of that. In developing the criteria, we would certainly want to look at kind of thresholds of affordability, because as I said, there is a material impact for the town in waiving fees or granting to cover the fees. So we would just want to be sure that discounted affordable housing threshold could be met.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But it wouldn't discern between a public housing provider or a private housing provider.
Okay, perfect. Thank
It's a good point, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Ms. Smithers. I'll move that council direct administration to waive development and building permit application fees associated with the YWCA higher ground development in Palliser. In speaking to the motion, I very much support this motion. In fact, I would go further, and I support waiving such fees for all non-market developments that are 100% non-market, and perhaps even staff housing if it can be shown that it's the units are actually being provided below market. So, you know, I think that this is a tool that the municipality has. I do believe that through, you know, we build up a development reserve to help in the slower times, so we don't need to have staff turnover, but I also think that that helps us absorb this sort of thing. And then we have a livability reserve coming that can also help cover these costs, and as well as make contributions to the projects, because the bottom line is that the less that these projects cost for the operator, the more likely they're able to offer deeper discounts against market. It's just less dollars needed to be financed in the long term means less dollars that need to be collected in order to have that project be sustainable. So I support this project and would do so for others as well. Next up, Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Mayor Crowsert. I'm definitely in favor of this motion as well. I support the statements that the mayor has made around progressing policy forward that aligns with the objective of delivering on non-market housing in our community. I think we've already seen in the past several years a number of ways that we can move advance policy to help support this sector of housing, and one is a policy around, I think that we passed that in terms of processing development permits for affordable housing, that if that goes to the top, if that's a priority within how we process in the department, that helps when we're waiving fees. And it's hard because, like, I don't think we're waiving fees. I think what we're doing is, I like the in-kind contribution. We are contributing as a community, as a municipality, and as a partner in this project. We are investing more in it. And so, and the other part that I think is really important is that the fees we charge are on a cost recovery basis. So, right, so this makes sense to me, because if the housing provider had to pay the fees, that goes on to that, like, it just costs more money. Somehow it costs more money to pay these fees, and I believe that we save money by contributing this in this way. And so I'm really happy to raise my hand in support. Thank you.
You, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Krausert. I'd be happy to support this motion. It's been really amazing just to see how far the Higher Ground project has come in so many years of the YWCA working on this, and now we actually have land and a building and a plan, and it's going ahead. It's like a real thing. And so it's wonderful to be able to put a little municipal weight behind it. I support what Mayor Krausert said as well. And I'm also wondering, it's great to hear that administration is working on some sort of framework around this and considering this a pilot project. I'm wondering if reinforcing it with a council motion might be a decent idea to direct administration to actually come up with something. Oh, look at that.
I'm writing it right now.
Neat.
Dr. Cottle, you
So
wanted
what
to?
we already have, I believe we already have that direction. It's in the approved livability budget as a project. And when council approved that budget, we indicated that for the 2027 budget, we would be bringing that forward.
Okay.
So I believe we already have that direction. We'll need to revamp the livability budget, but we already, so the timing may shift. And there'll be a further time to talk about that with council, but we do already have that direction.
Yeah, I'm talking about a policy with respect to waiver of development and building permit application fees.
So that, I think we have the direction we need. We already have a budget, and the budget may need to include a policy. So you can certainly make that motion. I'm just saying I don't think it's necessary. I believe we're already working on it, and we're not in the space yet to know if it will be a policy or something else. So I'm asking, I guess, for the room to do the work, knowing that we have an intention to report back.
I'm still leaning towards making a motion, but I appreciate your context there. We are debating a motion here, though. So, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think some interesting conversations come around the room here about waiving fees, et cetera. I think the big one for me, this is a slam dunk, it's the YWCA. Like, the level of social outreach is so deeply felt in our community and so meaningful. 270 to 330 units, this one for me is like, I'd be more than happy to help you guys out. And it's good luck with your project. I keep looking forward to hearing more and more updates and progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marin.
Yeah, I support this motion as well. I also like that it opens up the opportunity for potential future developments as well to be in a similar situation where waiving development and building permit application fees may make below market housing more accessible to other people who have similar project ideas. So I'm happy to see that move forward, this project in particular, but also in general to see that as a potential option in the future for other builders and developers.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't pontificate long on this one. I echo all of my colleagues' responses. Thank you very much for the work you've been doing, as well as administration. I know this has been a lot of work on everybody's part. Happy to support this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'm now going to move a motion arising, and I'm going to it's not very long, so I'm going to ask for the municipal clerk to pull up a blank screen, and I know that will take changing things over, and I'll just read what it is. I appreciate your responding without notice. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So the motion will be that council direct administration to return with a policy for waiver of development and building permit application fees associated with 100% non-market housing projects, as well as considering waiver of same for 100% below market staff accommodation buildings. Period. Thank you very much. And well done typing while everybody's watching. I totally would have had to have gone back and delete so many times. That was actually beautifully done. Well done. In speaking to this motion, we have received the feedback that this is something that the province would be looking for in grants, and I'm sure others as well. And even though it is, as Dr. Carl mentioned, something that would be considered as part of what's needed going forward, I want to make sure that this is in our resolution tracker, because I believe that this is really important, that we support non-market housing and staff accommodation to the greatest extent possible, given our current situation. So I would ask my colleagues to please support this motion, and certainly would be willing to discuss any questions or friendly amendments if anybody is needing such. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is really cool. I've done some research on what other municipalities do to incentivize non-market housing, and this is certainly one of the ways. You know, when I kind of learned about this at a convention a few years ago, I was like, well, it would be great if Canmore could do something like that. So I'd be thrilled to put up my hand and get the opportunity to support something like this. I'm almost wondering if, because there's, you know, this motion is around development and building permit application fees, and there might be some other potential incentives that might not necessarily be financial that could incentivize this and might want to be included in the policy. So I'm wondering if it's maybe like a friendly amendment after application fees for and other potential incentives.
All right, so I'll accept that as a friendly amendment, and it's going to be, what it's going to read now is a policy for waiver of development, comma, and then remove the and, building permit application fees, comma, and other potential incentives associated with 100. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Worship. I think this is one of those things, the devil's in the details. So like, I think I could support this in the spirit of what we have here, but I would definitely be really looking forward to see what gets brought back by administration, and then having like a more fulsome idea there. But
Yeah, of course, we wouldn't, we're
Absolutely.
not approving the policy here.
Of course
This is
not,
just-
but I'm just saying, like, I'm
This is
just
just
like
direct,
flagging.
this is just directing the work to
I'm
be
just
done.
flagging the spirit of it. I really appreciate,
Yeah.
but it's going to be just see what comes from there. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Marin?
Yeah, I also support the motion. I'm just wondering if the 100% is a little bit too restrictive. So I'm thinking of, and understanding that we're not voting on the policy right now and that will come back to us. But I'm wondering if we want to keep that a little bit more open. So I'm thinking of the project, the staff housing project that's Castle Mountain Furniture on the bottom, but was a majority of non-market housing projects. That actually would not be a project that would be considered with this statement. So again, I'm not opposed to it, I'll support this, but I'm just wondering if that 100% might be a little bit too restrictive at this stage, and that would be more incorporated when we look at the detailed policy. But I'm not sure how, if you
All right.
want to change that.
Yeah, I just don't want this to be for somebody's putting in some non-market in order to get density bonusing, that they get a waiver for that.
Completely
I don't
agree.
want that at all.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if we want to, if there's a way to word it where there's not that like that very restrictive 100%, so that there's still some flexibility for administration to
All right, so
to look at that policy
I'm
as
going to
well.
take this as a friendly amendment. I'm going to change the first 100% to with predominantly non-market housing projects, as well as considering waiver of same for, and I'm just going to take out the 100% below market staff accommodation buildings, because then I think that covers that as well.
That's great, thank you.
Allows for some leeway. Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Mayor Krauser, and thank you to Councillor Marin, because I was in the same mindset. Because the 100%, I mean, I understand what the direction was, but I felt like it perhaps closed the door to opportunities that might be on a spectrum. And also, I want to give administration the broadest brush to work with, because I think they already are heading in this direction. This is, I think, a direction we've already turned the ship towards, but now we're refining it into, like, where are the specific policy areas that we want to target and I think that the way you said it was like everything that we possibly can do to get housing in our community that we need. And so, yes, I'm very much in favor of the motion and the changes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate those comments. It's really about making sure that the spirit of this is captured and that it's on our books specifically, because I do think it's that important. And while recognizing that this work could come to us in any event, it doesn't hurt to have a motion very specific to that end. Looking to see if there are any other questions or comments on this motion. Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move forward with our next item. And that's item H2, property tax penalty forgiveness request, tax roll number 18348. Okay, Mr. Young, welcome to council.
Thank you. Good morning.
And whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
Right. Good morning, Worship Council. I'm here today with a request from taxpayers asking council to forgive interest and penalties applied to their 2025 property taxes. This is for tax roll number 18348. Council will occasionally receive a penalty relief request and determine on a case-by-case basis whether relief should be granted. Per the MGA section 347, council could cancel, defer, or refund all or portion of taxes should they choose to do so. Generally, tax penalties are only reduced or canceled when there has been an administrative error or when there are strong compassionate reasons to do so. In this particular case, the taxpayers are new homeowners in town and relocated from Edmonton. They remitted full payment of their property taxes and applicable penalties at the end of November 2025. In our report, we've included the total penalties paid and when the penalties were applied to the tax roll. The taxpayers have formally requested council to waive the penalties paid due to compassionate reasons. Administration would like to note that granting this waiver will not impact or redistribute any financial burden to other taxpayers. While administration recommends upholding the penalties per our bylaws, council can consider waiving them based on compassionate grounds. And to not release too much information about the homeowners and the story, we've requested a closed session for you to review this case and the reasonings for compassionate grounds.
Great, thank you very much. Given the personal information involved, we're going to avoid any questions specifically regarding this, except in the closed session. So I am actually going to move right now. The council closed the meeting to the public to prevent disclosure of personal information in accordance with section 20 sub 4 sub H of the Access to Information Act. Looking to council, call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. to the municipal clerk to let us know when we're streaming again. Okay, so in camera, we were able to speak about the specifics of this particular situation and ask the questions with respect to that. And now I'll be moving towards making the motion. I move that council uphold the property tax penalties for tax roll number 18348 in the amount of $175.83 as applied in accordance with tax penalty bylaw 2019-26. I don't expect anybody to speak to the motion unless they're able to do so without revealing any personal information and would like to do so. Councillor Faubert, you'd like to say something?
I just want to make sure the motion is the recommended motion?
That's the one I said.
Okay, perfect. I was just, because it's written in a way where I have to think about what my vote is, because it's like a double negative. Anyways, I'm happy. Thank you.
Okay, uphold the tax penalty in the amount of 175 as applied in accordance with tax penalty bylaw 2019-26. Yeah, it's exactly as provided is the motion. I hope that provided clarity. All right, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion is carried with Mayor Krausert, Councillor Ma, and Councillor Hillstad opposed. Okay, so let's have a meeting break and come back at 10:15. Ms. Jones to advise when we're back on. All right, we're back. We're now moving to item H3, Downtown Canmore Business Improvement Area, appointment of board member. Ms. McClett, welcome to council. Whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
I am. Good morning, Mayor Krause and member of council. I'm here for a triple presentation to council. So this is the start of the races here. So today, I'm before you to appoint a new board member to the BIA board. Since the last presentation to council, one of the previous board members resigned. And so there's that period till the end of 2026 that needs to be filled. And because it's quite early on in the year, the BIA did a call out to its members for interest. And just a reminder, as per section 6.3 of the BIA Bylaw 21/2005, board members are appointed by council, although elected by their membership. So the recommendation to council is that council appoint Rachel Ludwig to the Downtown Business Improvement Area Board of Directors for a term ending on December 31st, 2026. And as a background, this is what the current board looks like, with Renee Meggs been appointing as the chair, Christine DeSoto as vice chair, David Stratton remains treasurer, and then the directors as followed, and their terms has been outlined in this sheet for council. And then, of course, Councillor Mera being council appointee, and I am the administrative appointee to the board. So the board, they did go out to their membership to assess interest. They had some inquiries from their members, but the only one that actually submitted interest was Rachel Ludwig, and of course the board advanced with that recommendation to council today. And that was it for my presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm curious, how did they do the call out?
So they have a membership email list that was sent out through their newsletter to members.
Would you mind forwarding that to me, please? I didn't receive it.
I will try and find that and forward that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean,
Yeah,
it was sent.
as a member, I would have expected to have received it.
It may have been received. Yeah, it's because it was sent is what we're told. Okay, any other questions? I will then move that council appoint Rachel Ludwig to the Downtown Canmore Business Improvement Area Board of Directors for a term ending on December 31st, 2026. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, and so we'll move on to part two, or your next item, I should say. It's item H4, Capital Project 7275, Amendment Business Registry, CityView. And once again, whenever you're ready to go.
Excellent. So I'm here today to request a budget amendment to Capital Projects 7275, Amendment to Business Registry, CityView. So this capital project is actually owned by IT, but this portion of the request involves the business registry team in there. So recommendation to council is that council increase the budget for Capital Projects 7275 Business Registry CityView by $77,000 to be funded by the Economic Development Reserve for a total project budget of $186,835. So how we got here, council approved the capital project as part of the 2025 capital budget process. In early 2025, it has come back to council because of previous delays to this project. And then as we have seen the project initiation, there were several factors that have increased both the workload and cost pressures for this project. So vendor costs for the software and configuration project management exceeded the initial estimate, which had triggered a request for internal transfers under the financial VIN 001 budget amendment policy. IT requested reallocation of capital funding to accommodate those workloads and contractor cost. That increase did not leave any capacity within the approved budget for staffing support required to move this project forward. Now, Council might remember that when we approved updates to the Business Registry bylaw for visitor accommodation, we did ask for an increase of staffing. That is to accommodate the 1,400 additional business licenses that they are processing. But the work for CityView actually requires a far more targeted approach, and the team is feeling a bit overrun and overwhelmed at this present time. So that's why we're in front of Council, to see if we can't alleviate that and still keep this project on task and on time, because some of those timelines are also tied with updates forthcoming to the financial system itself, and making sure that we can do this before the renewal notifications go out at the end of the year. So as a reminder, CityView is migration is designed to streamline business licensing and permitting approvals, so that tie into what is happening in planning and business registry. That single-use portal that businesses can enter and see where the timelines are at for both. Improve and reduce manual efforts, because right now PDFs are submitted, the business registry coordinator types that into the system and then sends things out. In this case, the business owners have access and to maintain that data. So a bit of a data integrity. There's nothing that gets lost in translation or interpretation of people's writing. Sometimes they're legible, sometimes they're not. It's automating the renewal process and also the business directory. Currently, we have to manually enter that information into the system, into Loop, which is very labor intense. This would automate that process as well. So there's a lot of benefits from transferring the system into CityView and that alignment, and also the enforcement side of this for short-term accommodations. But in order to do this in a timely basis, we need some support. And I won't go into some of these things, but if approved, the increase will provide additional temporary staffing resources to support project implementation, launch, and the transition for business community as they adapt to the new software. We're not ignorant to the fact that changes sometimes come with questions. We've seen that with paid parking. The moment there is new software or software change, there might be some additional support. And our hope is to keep somebody on board for that transitionary period. But we also recognize that we will not need that for the long term. So that's why it's temporary in its nature. As a reminder, economic development reserve balance at the end of 2025 was $1,129,585, and I hope my dyslexic brain read that correctly. With the above recommended funding, and there's another presentation forthcoming after this, as well as changes to the recommendation on this agenda, the anticipated budget with this approval at the end of 2026 is estimated to be $959,826. So still a very healthy budget, even with the use of the funds outlined in this project.
And just to clarify, that includes the other projects on this agenda that we haven't gotten to yet. So that's even if that were approved also, then that's still
this
number.
amount.
Thank
Yes. Alternatively, council could approve not to advance this work, and we do flag that will anticipate project delays, increasing vendor costs over time, and staff unable to maintain service levels. as there's a lot happening with pedestrian zone. It's hard to imagine a pedestrian zone when the snow is coming down heavy outside, but we are permitting that, film permits, annual renewals, and new business license applications in addition. So we do hope that council will support this motion and recognize that it's still at the behest of council, as this is a budget amendment brought to you today. So that's the end of my presentation. Open for questions.
Thank you very much. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. McClett, for the presentation. One line I've keyed into here on the agenda package, vendor costs for software configuration and project management exceeded initial estimates. So I'm kind of wondering, like, how that estimate was arrived at. Like, did the vendor give us a quote and now they're asking for additional money, or how
So the original quote for this work was received in 2023 with, at that point, a buffer included. Things have changed over the last number of years as the work and we transition of IT managers and staffing changes. And so when they went back thinking that the buffer was enough, the estimated cost is different. And even so, now that the project team is working on identifying what our current processes are, what their processes are, and where we see alignment, there's again another place where we go back and saying, okay, so what is now the actual cost? Because that is based on estimate of what we know from each other at the time. Then they work out those details, which they've been working hard on to make sure, like, what is the flow chart tied to business approvals and moving forward. So yes, that did come in higher when we actually went into the nitty-gritty of the work, because estimates are provided on high-level understanding of those things at the time.
So it wasn't like a locked-in quote in 2023 then, essentially?
No.
Okay.
No.
All
It was, this is an estimate based on what we know have been provided of the flow chart, and then we start digging into the nitty-gritty, and there's always more details that you don't think of as you're working through these processes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Marin.
Thank you, Ms. McClett, for your presentation. Couple of quick questions. I think they're quick. So by approving, if this additional funding is approved, would that have this migration wrapped up by 2026? Is that the anticipated timeline? Like, it's obviously been ongoing for a few years now.
So indeed, the anticipated timeline of the launch is by October of this year of the new software, recognizing that we are transitioning the temporary staffing into 2027 to accommodate that learning curve that is we anticipate coming out of this work, and making sure that we're staffed accordingly for that renewal season in that time as well.
Okay, so just from the history, it's come back to council a few times, but this would be, you anticipate this being the final?
It's only come back to, council only approved the additional budget, and the others were internal transfers. But impact the project budget over time. So that's a request to the CAO under the policies that we have for budget amendments. And that's where we underspend on other projects and moved into this project that are similar in its nature. And so that automation piece and that we have seen with CityView and other processes to make sure that we're in the 21st century, we can do better than paper and pen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
So this is, my anticipation is the last one.
Okay.
But our IT manager's not here.
Your team left. No, that's great. And then, so this money as well for additional resources, does that involve hiring somebody new part-time, or is it a reallocation of existing human resources to fill this gap?
Sorry, stuff is popping up on my laptop. So we have 2 part-time business registry coordinator. We, of course, would offer them the additional hours if they so choose to. If that is not of interest to the team, we would go out and try and hire somebody. The focus on their work would be the basic stuff, and then making sure that trained staff can really put focused time and attention on doing the back-end work in order to make that transition as smooth as possible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll move that council increase the budget for capital project 7275 Business Registry CityView by $77,000 to be funded from the Economic Development Reserve for a total project budget of $186,835. Councillor Faubert, did you want to speak to the motion?
I'm speaking in favor because what I really appreciate with this presentation and this ask is that the council gave administration a direction to do work, but we don't have the resources to do the work. And so coming back and asking for the resources to fulfill the direction that we've given, I think it's really important to support this because this is directly related to direction that council has given around visitor accommodation and business licenses. The CityView and business transformation stuff, I feel like is also happening elsewhere, but in terms of delivering on a very specific objective, I'm supportive of it because that's what I'm hearing is that we've asked for, we've given direction. Administration has gone out and done the work to see what it will take to deliver that direction. They need more resources. They've come back, these are the resources. And so this is for me, easy to support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor, and I concur with those comments, and we'll be supporting this motion for the same reasons. Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And now we will move to Ms. McClet's third item, which is H5 Capital Project 7395 Amendment Winter City Strategy. And once again, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Mayor Krausert, members of Council. So I'm here to ask for an amendment to Capital Project 7395 Winter City Strategy. And this is a bit of a good news story. Council again approved this project, capital project, in the amount of $100,000 as part of the 2025 capital project ask. And since then, we were able to secure grant funding through NRED in the amount of $52,500. So the requested motion from Council is to approve the capital budget increase by $20,000 for the Winter City Strategy Capital Projects 7395 for a total of $120,000, with the amended funding of $67,500 from the Economic Development Reserve and $52,500 from the provincial grant. So, as I mentioned, Council approved the capital budget for $100,000. As part of capital project, we were able to secure grant funding to the Alberta Government Northern and Regional Economic Development funding. And funding allocation changes need to be approved by Council. So the fund initially was funded fully from the Economic Development Reserve, and now we need to fund part of it from the grant funding and part of it not. And as part of most grant funding, not all funds are, not all work is approved under grant funding. So there's a portion of the work that we would like to allocate differently. So administration is proposing an increase of $20,000 to support enhanced data analytics and create space for internal-led project engagement and piloting of one or two of the initiatives that we think will come out of this work. Those are the pieces that are not funded through the grant funding through NRED. And we realized as we started project chartering over the last couple of months that we needed to get some really specific statistics and be able to measure and track those, not on a ad hoc basis, but a more systematic, and that means purchasing data that we haven't done in previous projects. So that's the ask. We're still reducing what we're utilizing, but asking for a slight increase as well. So that's what we're here to bring to Council in this space. The reduced draw on Economic Development Reserve then will come to $32,500. Alternative, Council could consider that, no, we don't want to increase the project budget, and we want to just spend what was allocated at the start, and then here's the revised motion that council would need to consider. And that was the end of my presentation, and open for questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this coming forward, and it is good news. I see it as getting more while costing us directly less.
Yes.
Councillor Faubert, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. McLeod. My question is around piloting potential initiatives. What would those be?
Well, that's a great question. Our goal is to not go into projects and engagement with pre-assumed outcomes, but if I had to guess, what would it be like to have winter-ready patios that could enhance vibrancy in the downtown in an area where it's historically maybe less busy? Or what would winter activation or trail maintenance look like? I think during the COVID pandemic, we piloted cross-country skiing in areas that were underutilized as a means to get people out, or looking at mental health and vibrancy. Often the winter can be long and daunting for people. People feel more isolated, and how can we bring people into connection with spaces and people more effectively? I don't know if that's going to come out of the engagement or desire, but if I had to guess, those might be some of the things that that I could see happening in that space.
So it sounds like there's potential for a number of different initiatives to be recommended as a result of the strategy work.
Correct.
Would the process then be to bring the strategy back to council and have a conversation around what those initiatives or pilots might be?
Yes, the report would be brought back to council for adoption for planning purposes. The ask, of course, from the consultant would always be to prioritize those and work with our partners in this. We have both a large group of internal partners and stakeholders or interest holders, as well as external groups that are interested in seeing some of these outcomes and bringing forward some recommendations of where we should focus that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. McLeod. I wonder if you could elaborate more on the data and the data analytics that we're looking for, and how that what value we're going to bring for that part of the investment.
So part of data analytics can look like what is the actual impact we're having on the economy and the labor force. So looking at unemployment rates, looking at actual visitor spend, so tracking some of those data, formalized data processes through purchasing that data and then doing year-over-year comparators in the long run. And some of those come at a bit of a cost in order to access that data.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much. So I'll move the council approve a capital budget increase of $20,000 for the Winter City Strategy, Capital Project 7395, for a total of $120,000, with amended funding of $67,500 from the Economic Development Reserve and from a $52,500 provincial grant. Speaking to the motion, actually just reiterating what I said previously, I support this. I appreciate the opportunity that is being taken here to do more when this grant came in while using less of our reserve. And so I support it and look forward to seeing what comes of this work. Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I do want to say, though, that when it comes to piloting new initiatives, I'm really hopeful that there is a way to make sure that if a pilot or if whatever is envisioned in the strategy could result in new service levels, that is part of the presentation to council of the strategy. My concern is that by including money for pilots in the capital project, we as council might not know what those pilots are or what those those potential increases to service levels are. So it's just, for me, an awareness piece, and that's why I ask my questions. But I know that that is going to come back, and I just wanted to be clear around that I'm excited about that, right? I'm not saying this because I don't want it. I'm saying this because I'm highly engaged, and I want to make sure we're picking the right things that are getting the most bang for our buck and leveraging what we can. And I know that those would be the recommendations that would come to us anyways. And then I note that when we change the amendments to the project 7395 are just to the numbers. So the project description doesn't include piloting projects. And so I'm hoping that any pilots that would result are not like we would hear about them before we do them. Now, that I've talked too long about that point, I didn't want to get back to the fact that the Winter City strategy is amazing. This is exactly what we need to be doing and is exactly in line with the work that we've already been doing and we are a leader in when it comes to changing modes of transportation, getting people out of cars, addressing our climate change impacts. These are all related, and affordability. When people can move around their community and enjoy it in the winter, it's a game changer. This strategy would also turn us into a 4-season destination, right? Like winter is typically a shoulder season, but by focusing on a city strategy where we're placing residents' needs and making this a livable winter city, we only then reap the benefits of making it a winter destination as well. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with this strategy and the work that comes out of it, because I think it really aligns with the direction that we need to go. And to me, it aligns with some of the things that are in our strategic plan, which is coming up later in the agenda. So this is really exciting work for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to say I'll be in support. Great job to Ellen Marclette and the team at ECDEV for nailing the grant. That is always a very helpful thing. And in terms of our strat plan coming up, economy is one of our additional pillars, and I think just really working on that winter city strategy, finding ways that we can broaden our economy, open it up from the seasonal part. I do have friends that run businesses in the downtown, for example, and a lot of times it's feast or famine, and if we can kind of smooth that out, that'd be lovely. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll call the question then. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're going to invite up a new speaker. Thank you, Ms. McClett, for all of that. We're moving to item H6, capital project amendments. CAP 7458, Community Fireguard, Canmore Nordic Center East, and CAP 7383, Community Fireguard Planning South Boundary. All right, and welcome to council, and the microphone is yours whenever you're ready.
Great. Great. Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, members of council. It's very nice to be here. I'm Simon Bagshaw. I'm the new regional FireSmart coordinator for the town of Canmore, the MD of Bighorn and Kananaskis Improvement District. As you pointed out, this is my first time in front of council, first of several, I hope, going forward. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Deputy Chief Borgon and Firefighter Jacqueline Hutchinson from Canmore Fire Rescue. Oops. I will speak to the next 3 agenda items concerning updates and recommendations for council regarding the Community Fireguard and specifically the Canmore Nordic Center East and South Boundary portions of the Fireguard. I'll speak to the FireSmart Fuel Mitigation Project at Canyon Ridge, and the Bow Valley FireSmart Community Events Project will be the 3rd item I'll speak to. And then Ms. Hutchinson will introduce the agenda item on supporting the psychological health of first responders. Concerning the community Fireguard, as council knows well, wildfire remains the top-rated hazard to life, property and critical infrastructure within and around the Bow Valley. With support from council, administration has been working with the MD of Bighorn and with Kananaskis Improvement District, and with support from Alberta Forestry and Parks and funding from the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, which is FRIA. And we've been getting that support to construct the community Fireguard around Canmore, Harvey Heights, and Canmore Nordic Centre. Since construction started in November 2024, we've completed harvesting in Stoneworks Creek, Harvey Heights, East Park Gates, and Canmore Nordic Centre West and East blocks. The map here shows the Canmore Nordic Centre East block. To date, more than 1,200 hectares have been harvested and 66 hectares thinned as part of the Fireguard project. Once areas are harvested, crews will go back in and do additional work to thin, prune, and clean the area, much like you would see in our traditional fuel modification work throughout town. Once that's completed, the debris disposal takes place and the roads are reclaimed. Administration is recommending amendments to the capital budget for this Canmore Nordic Centre East project to reflect updated revenues and confirmed funding. During the planning phase of the Fireguard projects, timber revenue estimates are provided by West Fraser Timber Company and used for budgeting purposes. For the CNC East project, timber revenue was originally estimated at $82,100. However, due to operational factors, the actual revenue realized was $121,625, an increase of $39,525. As per the grant agreement with FRIA, this additional timber revenue will be reinvested back into the project to help offset costs. Following the award of the FRIA grant for the CNC East project, administration identified a calculation error that resulted in a $175,000 shortfall in the funding. FRIA was informed and a request for additional funding was submitted. FRIA approved the request and provided the additional $175,000. And so with the additional grant funding and the increased timber revenue, the total capital budget for this project is amended to $1,288,625, ensuring that the project remains fully funded. Concerning the South Boundary project, which you can see shaded in the yellow shading on the map, there are 3 blocks of work proposed along the south boundary of Canmore, starting behind the Peaks of Grassy neighborhood, the Stewart Creek neighborhood, and wrapping around Dead Man's Flats. The blocks are all within the town of Canmore or the MD of Bighorn and within the provincial park boundary. Construction of the Fireguard in this area will significantly enhance wildfire mitigation at the community level. On October 7th, 2025, Council directed administration to submit a funding request to FRIA for the South Boundary construction. FRIA did not approve the town's application at the time, citing a pending land transaction impacting a portion of the land where the Fireguard would be constructed. However, FRIA did approve additional funding that will enable detailed planning to continue while the land transaction is finalized. Administration recommends that Council amend the budget and scope for the South Boundary project to account for the additional grant funding, which will enable the following planning activities: Indigenous consultation through the Aboriginal Consultation Office, a Steep Creek hazard assessment and avalanche study in the Fireguard construction areas, a wildlife survey assessment, and to pay for a consultant to act as a land agent for the necessary authorizations to complete the construction of the Fireguard. So we have 2 resolutions are being requested today, which you can see on the screen with respect to the Fireguard project. And the recommendations are there. I don't know if there's any questions at this point.
Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Krauser. Thank you, Mr. Bagshaw, for your presentation. So I'm looking for a little clarity, this budget increase, like what would allow you to do that you weren't able to do before?
For which?
For the, what we're being asked to approve here.
So the southern boundary one or the Nordic Centre East?
Both.
For both. The south boundary one, it's not really an increase. We put in a grant request for funding,
Right.
which was turned down initially because of this land transaction issue. So, but they have given us additional funding in the meantime, which allows us to carry out planning activities that need to take place before the actual construction can take place. So things like avalanche hazard assessment, a wildlife survey, those sorts of activities. For the CNC East, it's more reflecting the changes in the timber revenue and the fact that the money that we had applied for was less because of a budgeting error on our part, and then FRIA then provided the additional revenues. And that part of the project is actually complete now. And so
Right.
the funding is done, and it was exactly what we needed for that.
I guess my question is more like, let's pretend this wasn't in front of council and you just had the money to work with that you did before. I mean, what would you not be able to do that you can do now?
Though it was more that the capital project that was presented had the wrong figures because of the funding shortfall in the initial request.
Okay.
When that came through.
Dr. Cottle, you wanted to add something?
Maybe I can help. On the Nordic Center, it would change nothing. This is just an accounting issue, so the work's done.
Okay.
This is a paperwork thing at the end, so the work wouldn't change at all. On the south boundary, this is allowing planning, this is allowing the work to begin to move forward. So there's no work happening.
Understood.
This will allow work.
I get it. Thank you. And then my other question is around the land transaction. I don't know if there's anything you can say about that.
I don't have any particular information on that.
Okay.
I think that's information we can provide. I don't know.
Dr. Cottle, you'd like to
Yeah,
speak?
so that's between Three Sisters and the province. They're doing a land swap, and that needed to be completed before this grant could be, before this work can move forward. So that's a long-standing issue. It's been in the books for a long time. It's between them.
And so it's still pending then?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
It's done or close to done.
Okay.
Yeah.
My understanding, it's in the works, but of course, for the work to be done, it has to be public lands, and that's why there's the transfer.
Yeah.
And as was committed by Three Sisters, they're transferring lands that are outside of their ASP areas that are in the corridors.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, looking to see if there are any other questions. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Bagshaw. We'll now deal with these motions. First of all, I'll deal with the first motion, and that's that council. Okay, so it's different on the screen than it is in the package. I'm going to go with the one in the package. Is that all right? Is that correct, Dr. Cottle? Yeah, the package one has the numbers, and this just has higher than budget timber revenue to include, which would address a budgeting error. This actually has the numbers in here. So I will move that council approve a capital budget amendment for CAP 7458, Community Fireguard, Canmore, Nordic Centre East, to reflect an increase of $214,525, funded by $39,525 in unanticipated timber revenue and $175,000 in grant funding from the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, making the total capital project value $1,288,625. I'm certainly going to support this motion, and thank you, Mr. Bagshaw, for providing the information that we needed to understand the reason for the request. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Bagshaw. And I'm also really grateful to FRIA for helping us out with the shortfall and allowing the project to continue. Thank you.
Any other member of council that would like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move that council approve a capital budget amendment for CAP 7383 Community Fireguard Planning South Boundary to reflect an increase of $175,000 in additional grant funding from the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, making the total capital project value $367,000. Once again, I'll be supporting this motion. I appreciate that the funding's provided so that work can continue to be moving forward as we roll around the different phases of our community fire guard. And I anticipate that once this work is done, that we'll be putting in or resubmitting additional applications. Anyone else wishing to speak to this motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, now we'll move on to the next item. Mr. Bagshaw, number 7, Capital Project 7460, Amendment, FireSmart Vegetation Management, Canyon Ridge. And go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the town continues to commit to community wildfire risk reduction. This includes the Canyon Ridge area that was treated in 2007 and again in 2015. The town's FireSmart Vegetation Management Plan update from 2023 is the guiding document for all FireSmart fuel reduction activities in the town. It provides recommendations and priorities for new and existing areas where maintenance or a second pass of thin, prune, and cleaning is required. Canyon Ridge remains an important project in terms of wildfire mitigation for us. In September 2025, Council approved a new capital project for FireSmart Vegetation Management in Canyon Ridge, which you can see, which is parcels, the 2A parcels on there, A1 and 2. Following that meeting, administration applied for additional grant funds from FRIA that would fund all the recommended FireSmart vegetation management work in the Canyon Ridge area, so including parcel B as well. The town received confirmation of $174,800 in grant funding from FRIA to complete a second phase of the vegetation management work in Canyon Ridge. Administration recommends that Council approve a scope change and budget increase to Capital Project 7460. The second phase will be a continuation of the project starting in Canyon Ridge this winter. The scope of the work will consist of thinning understory evergreen trees, pruning limbs on remaining evergreen trees, removal of dead down and logs and dead standing trees, and disposal of debris by pile and burning and chipping and removing.
Graham, did you have a question at this point?
It can wait.
Okay.
Your
All right.
Worship, thank you.
Sorry for the interruption. Please
That's
continue.
okay. So there are no anticipated impacts to the 2026 operational budget as a result of this work. And then our recommendation to Council is for a scope change and budget increase for Capital Project 7460. Let's take any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Bagshaw. I wonder if you could go back to the slide of the map, A1 and A2.
Sure.
This is going to be a little bit of a nitty-gritty question, but it just wasn't completely obvious from the map. So we've got the red line that goes right up against the back of Bow Meadows Crescent there.
Yes.
But it only goes about, let's say, 2/3 of the way. And I just thought that was interesting that we didn't go all the way up along the backsides of those other properties as well. Can you just potentially help me understand that?
Without actually going there and having a look myself, I
pretty
think it
detailed.
would depend on the infrastructure that's actually there. I mean, this was a prescription that was provided by the forestry consultant that we used for this work. I would imagine he had good reasons not to have taken it up further than we have on the current thing. But I can certainly find out and give you an answer.
Thank you. I'm sure he did.
Of course.
I thought it was just an interesting
Yeah, yes, no, I totally. Yeah.
feature. Thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll now move that Council amend the scope and increase the budget for CAP 7460. Oh, Councillor Faubert, oh, you just want to speak to it? Okay. No problem. CAP 7460, FireSmart Vegetation Management, Canyon Ridge, to reflect an increase in the project area and increase the budget by $174,800, funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, for a total budget of $328,800. And in speaking to the motion, I have to say that I love the emphasis that we have been putting on this work and that it continues to revolve. And I am so appreciative And the town of Canmore is so appreciative of the support provided by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta. The work really wouldn't be done into the scope and pace that it is without that support. And it's invaluable for our community, and I appreciate all the efforts that go into making these grant applications and that work. So it's really good. Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to say all those same things, so I'll just echo what you said. I'll mention to Councillor Graham's question that corner has a new building on it, so that new construction may have involved clearing of the space. And then I want to just say that on top of all of that, that another thing that sticks out to me is that this isn't just new FireSmart work. This is going back over work that we've already done, and that's really important because that is the prescription. That is the future, is we have to, the forests grow, and so we have to go back and do this. And I remember in 2007 touring Canyon Ridge with the fire department and the FireSmart work, and I remember learning for the first time about FireSmart and what our community was doing. And that is 19 years ago? What year is it?
Yes.
2026?
That's
19 years ago. So the fact that we're full circle around and we're coming back to this neighborhood and we're doing this work again is kudos to us. I think we're leaders in this work. So thank you very much.
Looking to see if anyone else would like to speak to the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we'll move on to the next item, Mr. Bagshaw, which is 2026 Capital Budget Amendment, Bow Valley Community FireSmart Events.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on September 16th, 2025, administration requested council support for a funding application to FRIA to support the 2026 Bow Valley Community FireSmart Events program in the amount of $15,000. FRIA awarded $13,000 of the total requested. $2,000 for a tent and accessories was not approved by FRIA at that time. Under the program, the Regional FireSmart Coordinator, yours truly, is responsible for developing a community event plan and schedule and for organizing and attending community events to help educate the public about FireSmart principles and practices to increase community resiliency. This grant funding will support the provision of public information materials and cover other expenses related to increased public events and education sessions, and will allow outreach to schools, community-based groups and the community at large. This project will also involve the MD of Bighorn and Kananaskis Improvement District as we continue to look for ways to collaborate and coordinate our wildfire mitigation efforts. Here's our recommendation for the approval of a new capital project for the Bow Valley Community FireSmart Events Program. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bagshaw, for this presentation. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. I don't see any, so thank you very much. And as recommended then, I will move that council approve a new capital project, CAP 7516, for the 2026 Bow Valley Community FireSmart Events, funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta in the amount of $13,000. These sorts of events are just so important and just continuing to create awareness and spread the word about everyone's responsibility to help our community be safe. Looking to council and Councillor Marin.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks for all of the work that's been done for the last 3 projects that we've just discussed. Any public education programs I fully support. I completely support this motion. I think any opportunity that we have to make the public more aware of what they can be doing and resources available to them really helps the entire community mitigate our fire risk throughout the entire town. So although this might be the smaller amount of all of the grants that we received, I do think it has the potential for a lot of impact throughout the entire community through these through the publication or public education outreach. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Bagshaw, I know how instrumental you were in the organizing of the Peaks of Grassy FireSmart work there and all of the events that were essentially started up there. I think, Peaks of Grassy ended up being a real leader when it comes to neighborhood FireSmart work. And to see you as the regional FireSmart coordinator, I think this is going to be money well spent because you know what you're doing, and it's great that you're continuing to spread the word in an even more broad sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly concur with that. Seeing no other councillors wishing to speak, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, we will, thank you very much. We'll now move to Ms. Hutchison. H9, Supporting Psychological Health in First Responders Grant. Welcome to council, and whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. I'm Jacqueline Hutchison, representing Canmore Fire Rescue. Last year, administration partnered with Town of Banff Fire Department and Stoney Nakoda Nation's Emergency Medical Services and submitted an application as the Bow Valley Emergency Services Mental Health Consortium, titled Supporting Psychological Health in First Responders to Alberta's Ministry of Jobs, Economy, Trade and Immigration. On February the 24th, 26, administration received notification that the application was successful and that $78,700 in funding has been granted. Administration recommends that council approve a new capital project to complete a mental health needs assessment, create an online resources hub, and provide mental health training. Here's a mini agenda of what I'll be going through. So just highlighting public safety personnel and our psychological health, the application that went through last year, what we asked for in the grant, what we promised to deliver, recommendations, and then questions. So Alberta first responders often deal with stressful and traumatic situations, and it has a negative impact on us. Public safety personnel experience post-traumatic stress injuries, PTSI, which is more all-encompassing than just PTSD, and death by suicide at a significantly higher rate than the general public. The project will begin with a region-wide assessment of mental health needs among emergency first responders and their families to ensure that training and resources are relevant, evidence-based, and responsive to identified gaps. Findings from the assessment will inform the design of an accessible, centralized online hub. This platform will offer training opportunities, evidence-informed mental health tools, crisis contacts, and peer support resources for both service members and their families. The consortium will deliver mental health training through the Before Operational Stress Program, BOSS, and trauma-informed leadership programs facilitated by Wayfound Mental Health Group. The Rebuilding Families Program, RBF, is facilitated by Families First Responders Incorporated, and this will also be offered acknowledging the critical role of family fostering long-term psychological health and resilience recovery. The Bow Valley Emergency Services Mental Health Consortium brings together emergency services agencies across the Bow Valley to take a coordinated regional approach to supporting first responders and their families. The initiative focuses on upstream mental health support to help prevent and reduce PTSI injuries by improving early access to care and ongoing wellness resources. A central goal of the consortium is to normalize mental health support within emergency services, reduce stigma, and make mental health services easier to access for personnel and our families. By building capacity within participating agencies and strengthening interagency cooperation, the project aims to create sustainable, locally relevant mental health support systems. The initiative directly supports the health and wellness being of Canmore Fire Rescue's 41 firefighters and extending benefits to a minimum of 128 emergency services employees across the Bow Valley, and these numbers do not reflect our family members. So this is our recommendation. And while the town of Canmore is leading this project and grant report ownership, administration continues to work closely with the town of Banff Fire Department, Stoney Nakoda Nation's Emergency Medical Services as key interest holders and recipients in this project. Thanks very much for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for bringing this forward, and I'm so pleased that this grant was received. I just have to say that previously I wore a hat of the executive director for the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention, and very aware of the high risk that first responders are to suicide. And so this is literally life-saving work. For every death by suicide, the ripple effects, it can actually, the estimate is reaches 100 people. So at 128 emergency service employees, you know, that's potentially 12,800 people. If all of those people weren't able to get help and you know, they could be impacted. So it's such a broad reach. And it supports the people that put themselves in harm's way and then are harmed because of that. And we need to make sure that they're strengthened. So anyway, I guess my comment is thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Seeing none, I'll move the motion. I move the council approve a new capital did you want to actually, oh, you're just getting one to speak. You guys are getting really quick on the buttons today. I move the council approve new capital project CAP 7515 Bow Valley Emergency Services Mental Health Consortium to be funded by a supporting psychological health and first responders grant in the amount of $78,700. I've already spoken to the motion, and now Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very happy to support this one. I was up in Edmonton last week, a couple weeks ago, listening to a delegation of first responders talking about the need to take a knee sometimes, and how we've stigmatized that in the past, and we need to destigmatize that need to take a break. You all do a job that I could never do. Maybe that feeling's mutual. You know, mental health support across first responders is incredibly important, and helping you all do the work that you do is something I can proudly support. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Marin.
Yeah, I think this is going to be more of the same. Thank you for making the effort to apply for the grant, for collaborating with our neighbors, and then obviously there's going to be an implementation that's going to take some effort as well. I've said this before, but on a personal level, my dad was a paramedic in the city of Calgary for 20 years, so I grew up with a first responder as a dad, and I recognize how important this work is. So I also recognize that there's been effort by Canmore department as well as the others to make sure that this is in place. So definitely supporting it, obviously, but thank you very much for the work that you've put into it, because it's so important.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for taking the time, Ms. Hutchison, for coming up. I think anything we can do in our society to normalize getting help when you need help, that's huge. I think for myself, I go for lots of dark times, and the counselor I speak with does a big lift in helping me being functional. And I just really wish all the best for you and your fellow providers. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks. Pass the message on. Thanks.
You bet.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? I would add too that, you know, first responders actually even go further than what we wouldn't normally expect. We know first responders are paramedics and fire and police, wardens, but they're also tow truck drivers. They show up at some gruesome situations and they need support, and they're the trauma workers also, and those who are the you know, provide support for, you know, victim support. All of those, they deal with it front line, and so it is such important work. And with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And we have one more item today, and that is item H10, Council 2027 to 2030 Strategic Plan. Dr. Carl, welcome, and whenever you're set up, the microphone is yours.
What's it doing? I did F8. Oh. I can do it without. Let's try that one. Oh. Okay, great. Okay, here, it just needed a minute. So, Your Worship and members of council, I'm really excited to be here getting approval of your new strategic plan. So, as you know, this plan was developed earlier this year. You had a facilitated offsite session, set goals and objectives for the rest of this term and the first year of the next term of the next council. And this document will be used to guide decision-making, provide useful information in business planning, for business planning and budgeting. It'll be a reference tool for admin, and we'll also use it to communicate your priorities to the community. So as you know, you established a vision for the community that will use as you govern over the next 4 years. New to this year's strategic plan was also the articulation of some values and how council wants to conduct themselves. And you focused on strategy, integrity, innovation, and compassion. We also added a section on organizational excellence that focuses on maintaining a healthy organization, making a commitment to implementing sound practices and good governance, focusing on financial stewardship, protecting and planning for long-term interests of residents, managing our assets and resources equitably and sustainably, committing to investing in an inclusive and connective staff, and valuing the people who work for the town. There are 4 goals, as you know, in this new strategic plan. One of them is around livability, and 4 objectives articulated under the livability goal. There's a goal around environment and 3 objectives related to that environment goal, a goal of around relationships and 4 objectives related to that goal, and then a goal around economy and 3 objectives related to that goal. So assuming you approve this today, admin will now work to develop a corporate business plan that relies on the service level inventory that was completed with the last council, and then that will lead into department business plans and budgets for a 4-year plan. We'll work with the management team to how we're going to monitor and measure progress, and then set up a system to report back annually to you on that progress. And then we'll also be checking in with council each year to make sure the strategic plan is still fitting and if there's any tweaks that you want to make. So it's the beginning of a launch of that whole process. So the recommendation is just simply that you approve the 2027 to 2030 strategic plan.
Great. Thank you very much for presenting our work and that we all did together. So I'm wondering if there are any questions, or if I should just go to the recommendation. Yes, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Cressert, and thank you, Ms. Caudill. I just wanted to say that the presentation is really slick. I'm curious who took the photos. That's my question.
Oh, you know, I don't know. The presentation is the photos from the actual strategic plan, which we create a Word document and send it out to a graphic designer, and the graphic designer comes back with those images. So often those are stock photos that are available through the graphic designer, or sometimes the town does have a contract with photographers where we buy the images. So if there's any copyright, it would show up on the photo, otherwise it's generic.
It looks really good, I just wanted
great.
to say.
We'll pass that along, thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments before I make the motion? Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, then I'll move the council approve the 2027 to 2030 strategic plan. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Councillor Faubert.
Oh, did I hit it first? We
did.
all go at the same time and it was me?
There
Oh
there
my
was a
Lord.
mad rush and you
I feel
rung
like,
in. So
I feel like I won the lottery.
how much would you like to wager for this particular question?
The next 4 years, please. I'm really excited about this, and I really want to thank administration and all my colleagues for all the work showing up at the table together to craft the strategic plan. This is the second one I've been involved in, and over time, what I've learned and grown to appreciate and really see is how vision works, and how, you know, while the language is broad and strategic, to me, it does chart a course for us that takes us into a better future. I'm really excited about the fact that we added a goal around economy. And I'm really, really excited to include regenerative and sustainable tourism with underneath that goal. And embracing that and really championing in this area for our community moving forward is going to matter, because this is about making our community a better place to live for its residents, an amazing place to do business, and a place where the landscape that we are on, we are stewards of. And I see all of our values as a community in this plan. So I'm really excited to do this work with my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too is very excited to move this one forward. I felt that it built on what I felt was a strong strategic plan for the last term, with a couple of additions. I too am excited about the tourism piece and the arts and culture piece that we added to this document. To me, the tourism piece, this allows us to actively manage tourism over the next while, and I think that's a piece that's kind of been off the side of the desk or not a focus, and now it allows us to put our minds to that more actively. You know, there are some ambitious plans by the province with regards to tourism, and if those come into fruition, it is going to need serious active management as to how we deal with people and the landscape, wildlife, and I think that having this piece in our strategic plan is an important piece. It doesn't say that tourism is our only economy. In fact, I don't want it to be. It is a piece of our economy. It is part of our diverse economy that we will continue to work with. And then as far as the arts and culture piece, you know, arts and culture has been such a foundation of this community for a long, long time. And I know that there are some folks in the community with some incredible visions that I look forward to seeing those move forward, and this gives us that ability as well. So these are two important pieces in this document that I'm really excited for. Thank you to everybody to helping make this work, for sitting around the table and having a great conversation about what it is and who it is and how we want to move forward over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Marin.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of quick things. I appreciate the collaborative process that brought us to this strategic plan. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the details as administration works with this and comes back to council with what that looks like for the next 4 years. Having not contributed to the previous strategic plan, I'm excited that we now have 4 kind of main pillars or goals instead of 3. So there's some additions that really reflect the goals of this council, and I'm excited to see what those look like moving forward as well. My understanding is that it's the first time tourism has been explicitly stated in the strategic plan, so I think that's a positive move forward. And then I'm also very pleased to see that supporting local businesses and employment as it relates to our economy in the town of Canmore is included in this strategic plan as well. So yeah, some great work, I think, between us and administration, between council and administration, and looking forward to seeing what this looks like over the next 4 years as this current council.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Krausert. I'm really excited about this, although this is probably the first chance the public has really gotten to take a look at this document. It's something that we as council have been working on for some, multiple day planning sessions. We really drilled into a lot of what the vision is that we want to see for our community, and it's just so amazing to see all of our best ideas coming forward here. It all encapsulated in this really wonderful, slick document. Canmore is a livable, inclusive mountain community rooted in care, balance, and shared stewardship. I mean, it's one sentence that really sums up the reason I ran for council in the first place, and I'm really excited to be supporting this work and having this as our guiding document for the rest of our term.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Worship. I was on prior council back in 2021, and as we were going through the midst of the pandemic and stuff, it was a bit of a crisis time at that point. And so I feel the strat plan we had back then was required to meet some really big issues. I'm heartened by the fact that, a lot of those similar values and goals in the prior strat plan are here. So in some ways it's a little bit iterative, but also the fact we've added more pieces. As noted, we added an economy piece. I think a lot of my other fellow councillors talk about other parts that are being brought into the umbrella of this strat plan, and it's great. And for myself, definitely the arts, culture, and heritage piece, I'm really excited to get that a little more energy. I know during times of big challenge, sometimes that stuff gets put on the back burner, and for us to recognize that here we are moving into what I feel Canmore is steadily moving in a better direction, be able to turn our mind towards all these other things that make our community great is really special. And thanks for my fellow councillors. Let's get some work done. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hillstad, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Ditto.
I saw that coming. And while I am tempted to concur with your ditto, I am going to speak to a few things and probably repeat some of the items that have been mentioned and probably raise a few new ones. I'm very proud of this document. I was very proud of the strategic plan that we came up with in 2021, and that was a break from the past with how we did strategic plans, and we had the 3 pillars. And I was going into this process, I was like, can we actually do better than that? And we did. And we worked together very well, along with administration, and I want to give a shout out to Tracy Lawrenson from Civic Excellence for her work, because I believe that this strategic plan continues the work of the previous one while enhancing a number of things. And I want to point out a few of those things. Under the livability goal, we are going to continue our emphasis on housing and affordability, as well as mobility. And we've added in there childcare. Now, with respect to childcare, it's a provincial jurisdiction, but we are going to look at ways that we can, as a municipality, support or encourage increased childcare capacity to strengthen family and workforce stability. This is important work in our community. It does relate to affordability. It does relate to the ability for people to actually be able to stay here and to encourage young families to be here. Under the environmental goal, there's a lot of continuation of the work, including incredible important work of emergency preparedness. We see it coming to almost every council meeting, work that is continuing in that regard. And of course, our climate change mitigation and our work with human-wildlife coexistence will continue. On relationships, we moved the needle in the last term, and I see it even going further, particularly deepening intergovernmental relationships and continuing to strengthen Indigenous relationships, in particular with our friends, the First Nations of the Stoney Nakoda, who are our closest adjacent Indigenous neighbors. Under economy, the new pillar, this is really exciting. It's been mentioned by many of my colleagues, formally recognizing tourism within our strategic plan. We of course acknowledged it verbally last term, but this puts it right into the strategic plan. And as Councillor Faubert mentioned, the addition of regenerative tourism is being part of our strategic plan. Looking to support business stability as well as diversity. And diversity is, you know, we are very much a tourism community now, and there is diversity that's needed within tourism, and there's also diversity needed outside of tourism to help build resilience and opportunity depending on what external forces we are having to deal with. And so that's such a strong addition to this overall strategic plan. And instead of the 3 pillars, we now have the 4, which is, in my mind, just added strength and stability for our plan. So with that, and thank you everybody for all of your comments and all of the work that was put into this plan. I am now going to move that council, now I'm going to call the question on this motion that council approve the 2027-2030 strategic plan. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And with that, we come to the And with that, we come to the conclusion of our meeting. So I move that we adjourn. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.